How do those atoms stick together and form compounds? Chemical bonds. Chemical bonds are what hold the atoms together. And chemical bonds basically arise from attraction between opposite charges. Exactly what those charges are will vary from compound to compound, but basically it comes from the protons, which are positive, and the electrons that are negative. We can classify chemical bonds into two broad types, ionic and covalent. Ionic bonds occur between metals and nonmetals. And so they involve the transfer of electrons from one atom to another. We learned that a characteristic of metals is that they will lose electrons and form cations. So in a chemical reaction, that's what they do. They lose electrons. Where do those electrons go? It goes to the nonmetal. Nonmetals accept electrons and become negative ions. So the electrons get transferred. It could be one or more. And now what you have is a positively charged cation and a negatively charged anion, and they're going to be attracted to each other just like magnets, right? And they're just going to stick together. And that's the ionic bond. It's the attraction between opposite charges on the ions. For an ionic compound as a solid, those ions are arranged in a lattice. They have a specific pattern. They're not just all jumbled together. So a regular three-dimensional repeating pattern. And we can see that pattern here in this illustration of sodium chloride. We've got sodium chloride, sodium chloride, sodium chloride. It arranges in a way to maximize the attractions and minimize the repulsions, because two chlorine atoms are going to repel each other because they have like charges. And so it's going to find an arrangement that maximizes the attraction. Here we have sodium metal, highly reactive, chlorine gas, quite toxic. We take these and we combine them into a compound. A chemical reaction occurs. Neutral sodium atom loses an electron. The chlorine gains the electron. Now we have a positive sodium ion and a negative chloride ion, and those are attracted to each other. Make sense? So ionic bonds, you have a transfer of electrons. Covalent bonds, we will observe between two or more nonmetals, and these involve the sharing of electrons. So ionic bonds, ionic compounds have ions, right? Covalent, co means to share, right? If you practice co-sleeping, you let your children sleep in your bed with you. Co means sharing, co-op. So the electrons are shared between two or more atoms. There's no electron transfer that occurs. So we can look at different arrangements of these individual atoms. So here we have the nuclei, which are positively charged, and this is representing the shared electron. If the electron is over here, that's not going to be very stable because the attraction here is not very good. If it's out here, that's not very stable. The best place is if that electron is right between those two nuclei and both of them can be attracted to the electron. We'll learn a lot more about those later. Covalent compounds are found in molecular compounds. Covalent bonds are found in molecular compounds. They form molecules, not ions. They have discrete molecules, like water is 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. And those are not going to be chemically bonded to other molecules.